So just like the last video, I'm not going to be discussing these top 5 decks or any top tier decks in the Pioneer format. I'm trying to figure out and suggest decks that could be good against the current meta. So we have 5 decks, my favorite decks, that I think are all my playstyle. So if these are more your playstyle, we definitely are a little bit more aligned than you might think. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Again, like I said, there's, the top 7 decks, tier 1. These are decks that are closer to the bottom of tier 2, or maybe has been a deck that used to be a thing that's kind of fallen out of favor. And you're going to probably see that deck relatively midway through the video. So keep that in mind. Each of these decks are definitely unique in their own right. So if they're your style of deck, definitely consider exporting them. So let's get into it. Hello, it's your host KebbieG. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, also the bell notifications. Don't forget to check out the sweet stuff that's down in the description down below. So, number 1 on our list is 5-color Cascade. Now, the deck is built around the Cascade effect with Joda, the unifier. It's a sweet deck overall. We have 3 Mox Amber, some Cocos. We have Adeline, which is a really good magic card. And Fenza, which is one of the cards that I added. I think this card is just sweet, and I can't wait to play it. We have General Kudrow, General Forcer, Initiate. So there is some non-legendary creatures in this deck. But so the concept the whole deck is built around is whenever you cast a legendary spell from your hand, you basically Cascade to when you exile a legendary non-land card with less value. So you try to run about 2 to 3, of a legend. You don't want more than that, because when you Cascade, you want to make sure you are able to hit other things. So overall, this deck is pretty awesome. It's gonna definitely give you a little bit of excitement because you don't really know what you're cascading into, which is one of the greatest feelings about Cascade. Except in Modern, where you're traditionally what you're cascading into because you rigged the deck to know. This deck is not trying to do that. We have a mixture of 2 drops, 1 drops, 3 drops, and we're just trying to hopefully find a legend that we don't currently have on the board. Otherwise, we're gonna have a little bit of a feel bad, but it was exciting to get to that feel bad. So we have Cathars in the sideboard for a little bit more removal with Coco. We have Dinnick for graveyard hate. We have Spellbinder for control matchups when we want to remove things out of our opponent's hand. Push that Supreme Verdict a little bit further. We have Tracker for grinding matchups. Wedding Announcement is pretty solid. It gives us card advantage or gives us 1/1s, and eventually becomes an anthem to start smashing face. So depending on what your meta is, you definitely should adjust this accordingly. But I think right out of the gate, just blank statement, this deck looks like it's pretty functional. We have 22 lands. Some versions of this deck is playing 24, but I think 22 is right, especially since we're so low to the ground outside of Joda, which is 5 mana. Everything else is less than 3 or less. So try this out. It's kind of like humans in regards to it's very aggressive, but it also has a decent fun aspect in the later part of the games. So I definitely approve this list. Let's get into the next one. All right, so next we have a deck featuring Siege Rhino. I did say that in the last video that I was going to cover a deck with Siege Rhino, and Siege Rhino is one of my favorite all-time cards. I love it. It's a 4-mana 4/5 with trample that drains your opponent. This is, I believe, I'm wrong. I was thinking it was a Yorion deck, but it's not. But that's okay. We have Graveyard Trespasser. It's a great magic card. It helps take care of the graveyard a little bit as we're just trying to outmaneuver our opponent. We have Asban Charm, which is actually pretty decent in this current meta. It exiles target Greasefang, or it draws 2 and you lose 2. We have Assassin's Trophy to deal with the vehicles, as well as Greasefang. We have Fatal Push, deals with a lot. Vanishing Verse is a pretty flexible removal. So we have Shieldred, we have Ooze. So we have a lot of ways to regulate our opponent's graveyard, which helps against Izzet Phoenix and Greasefang. We have Thoughtseize, so that's pretty solid against control. So again, we're right out of the gate. We're adjusted to deal with 3 of the top 7 decks in Pioneer. So this deck is built to semi-compete against them. So do not like rub this deck off because of that. Now, against mono green, how this deck functions. We have Asman Charm to remove Cavalier. We have pushes to kill the elf. So we should be able to stabilize, and we have Vanishing Verse also for the elf. So when you really think about it, this deck is actually also pretty geared towards beating mono green. So right out of the gate, we have addressed the 2 top decks, right? Rakdos, actually, Rakdos might be a little bit of a tricky one, but we have hit the 3rd best deck, the 2nd best deck, and the 4th best deck. All of them, this deck can actually compete against. And you could tweak this deck a little bit more if you want to gear it more towards Rakdos midrange, but I think 1-for-1ing Rakdos midrange, this deck should still function. We have Scavenging Ooze to eat the Kroxa, so that's also pretty relevant. And Siege Rhino is not a bad statted creature, so it could definitely fight through some of their smaller creatures. So if you like Siege Rhino and you like Asman midrange, this might be a deck for you, and I highly recommend it, right? We have Abrupt Decays for early removal. We have Extinction Event, but it's more for mono white. We have Night of Autumn for life gain, Artifact and Enchantment Hate, and it's a worst case, it's a 4/3 for 3. We have Liliana the Veil for control. We have Rest in Peace for Greasefang, and Is It Phoenix? We have Sky Sovereign, pretty solid coming out of the board. It deals with mono white pretty well. And then we have Terror Sunder for a kind of a catch-all removal spell. Since we're in green and black, we could definitely kick it. So it's pretty good. Definitely consider this list. This is probably, out of the list we're going to cover today, is definitely built to beat the current meta. So definitely think about it. And let's get into the next one. Now, let's get into this list. This list is a deck that has fallen out of favor in Pioneer, Mono White Devotion Book. The deck is built around the combo of the Book of Exalted Deeds, make your Mutavault, and you basically can't lose the game. It turns out that the Book of Exalted Deeds is pretty good with Nykthos because it is 3 pips. This is a Yorion deck, so keep that in mind. We do have some interesting place patterns here. We have Thalia's Lancers, which could help find the Bruna and the Glissa, so we can meld them. That's pretty awesome. We have Elsbeth, 4 Karns, 2 Wandering Emperors, and 1 Ugin. So this deck has the late game package built into it, and we have a Charming Prince, Knight of the White Orchard, which is 2 white pips plus a maybe Ramsus. We have Alara for a little bit of life gain. Then we have Skyclave Appetizers as a way to deal with mid-range threats as well as early game threats. We have a dog, so I mean that should be more than enough to make you guys pick up this list. Spirit Companion, come on now. We have Specters, which is more what this deck would want from a 1-drop, right? Like I mentioned in the Staples video, Thrabes is more for mid-range style decks that are not trying to win the game aggressively. We would rather have a 2 toughness creature that can maybe block a 1/1 and stay alive. So he is actually pretty important in that regard. And plus it also investigates so you get a clue to draw. Tomic is also 2 white pips. It also hates on land-based strategies. So that's kind of nice. We have Amiria's Call. It's our 36th land. But land-wise, we have a pretty simplistic mana base. 26 planes, 4 Nykthos, 4 Mutavaults, 1 Field of Ruin. We have Portable Hole. We run this as our primary removal spell because it's white pipped and it's a permanent, which helps with Nykthos. We have March of the Otherworldly Light, so we could invest all our mana from Nykthos into a March. Kill their best thing. Seems pretty good. Now, with the Karn package, we have Gear Hulk for a mini sweeper that we can keep tutoring up. We have Smite. It's also pretty decent against Greasefang. And then we have Gideon for a mid-range or our aggro, right? Because we actively just want to make some chump blockers and keep defending our life. So if we're facing a low to the ground deck, Gideon is definitely better than Wandering Emperor, or potentially some other cards as well. We have Glass Casket for a little bit more removal. If the creature is 3 mana value, not 2, because we have another portable hole in here. Karn can get it, so Karn can get up to a creature with mana value 3 or less, basically. We have Godfarer's Statue, which is pretty good against decks that want to cast multiple spells in a given turn, like Is It Phoenix. It's also pretty good against decks that like Control, where they're trying to cast 1-for-1 you and with removal. If they're getting taxed out, they can't deal with multiple threats. They're in definitely a world of hurt. We have Pithing Needle as a catch-all, and we have Sky Sovereign, pretty good overall. It's a mid-range threat. We can tutor our book, so we can definitely potentially have 7 copies of the book, which is pretty solid. We have another Wandering Emperor. If we're facing another mid-range deck, we want that little bit of exile effect. It's pretty good. Tormod's Crypt, really good with Karn, because we can get it and play it on the exact same turn. We have Unlicensed Hearse, Runestone. So the deck, like I said, has a pretty solid Karn board overall. The deck is pretty functionable. I like it. This is one of those decks that used to be around, but has eventually fallen out of favor to the point where it doesn't see as much play or any play at all. And that's mainly because people gravitate towards the top 5, top 7 decks. So if you guys are interested in Mono White Devotion, try this out. This deck is pretty sweet overall. I like it. Let's get into the next one. Now, if you know anything about my channel, you have noticed that I have played 2 streams with featuring this deck through leagues. Possibility Storm. It is a tier 2 deck right now. It's really strong. We have Borgamos combo with Enter the Infinite. So you cast basically Lovestruck Beast, the sorcery side, or the Rose Thorn with the Possibility Storm down. It basically gets to Enter the Infinite. You put Borgamos on top. Then you cast... This list cast Hangerback Walker for free. You get your Borgamos and pitch all of your lands, win the game. It's pretty fun. We have 2 Chandras for control matchups, Damping Spheres, good against Is It Phoenix. We have Environmental Sciences and the basic Conjuration for Learn. So we do have Gnarl Professor. So when we learn, we can grab one of those 2. They are sorcery to help find our Enter the Infinite. Pithing Needle is a catch-all. We have Rendering Volley for White Spirits and Greasefang. We have Hearse also for Greasefang and any kind of graveyard strategies. So, that's Possibility Storm. This is one of the decks that I actually like. I love the fact that this version has Fire Prophecy and Valakut Awakening to make sure we tuck Borgamos, Enter the Infinite to the bottom. So we don't have to see them again until we're actually wanting to win. These 3 cards are, kind of a dead draw. And it's nice to be able to tuck them. So I really like this version for that. And of course we run the 3rd best card in the format, which is Fable the Mirror Breaker. So that is Possibility Storm. Next on our list is one of my favorite types of strategies, which is Temur Ramp. Now this deck, like I mentioned in the Staples video, I wanted to put together a deck with Growth Spiral. I think this card is underused in Pioneer, and it's about time we start changing that. It has Kozilek's Return as a sweeper main board, instant speed. We have Impulse to Dig. We have Fading Hope for a little bit of interaction. Stubborn Denial, because most of our creatures are huge. We have Thought Not Seer for the control matchup. We have World Breaker. So we have definitely... And Elder Deep Fiend is pretty solid overall to help lock our opponent out of casting stuff on one given turn where we're trying to win the following. We have Ugin, Nissa. This deck is pretty awesome. We have a decent mana base for Temur. We have Sanctum of Ugin, which is really important because we have Elder Deep Fiend, Thought Not Seer, and World Breaker. As always, when you cast them, you can maybe go grab any colorless creature. So if you cast World Breaker or Elder Deep Fiend, you could grab a Thought Not Seer and cast it that turn if you have the mana available. So that's really important against Control, where they'll probably counter the Deep Fiend or the World Breaker, and you need another threat to be able to push another one through. Sideboard wise, we have Courser Crucifix for aggro. We have Damping Sphere for Is It Phoenix, as well as potentially nick those matchups. We have Dragon Lord Atarka for the aggro matchup. It comes down, sweeps the board a little bit. We have Big Emmy for control. We have Pismari Command as a way to deal with small threats, also loot, make treasures, destroy artifacts. It's pretty versatile. We have Scavenging Ooze for Graveyard Hate. We have Torch Breath. It is pretty good against spirits, and it can't be countered. So it still hate on other cards like Greasefang or whatever. It's kind of a catch-all. And since we have a lot of mana, it's not that big of a deal. We could definitely pay for the X because we are a ramp deck. So that brings us to the end of this episode. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know down in the comments if there's a deck that you guys would like me to cover in a video, because I'm more than willing to do a couple more of these depending on how well they're liked. Until next time, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And like I said, let me know. Let me know all this down in the comments. And all these decks will be linked in the description, so you can pick whichever ones you like and export them by clicking more export and try them out. They're all fun. I think they're all going to be semi-competitive. You should be able to take them to your FNM and maybe get some wow factors out of it. And hopefully you can maybe even win your FNM and maybe even 5-0 a league with these decks. So if you guys, like I said, if you guys want more content like this, let me know, because my job as a content creator is to push decks that are not seeing play that should be. So, and like I said, until next time, hope you guys have a great rest of your day.